What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Links and Locks Best Bets podcast. I believe our penultimate edition for the 2023 calendar year, because we're at the penultimate tournament, at least official tournament of the year this week. It's the Butterfield Bermuda Championship. We'll speak about that in just a minute. I'm Jason Sobel from the Action Network. He is Ben Everill from Golf Bet, and we're here to play 18 holes, make 18 bets. But first, got to tell you a little bit about our sponsor, Bet365. Links and Locks. Yeah, that's right. We're presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. It believes that every sport should be epic. Every tournament, every game, every point, every play, from the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today with code ACTION, ACTION, and you'll get $365 in bonus bets when you bet just $1. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 or older only, must be present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions apply. And Benny, before we look ahead, let's look back to this past week at the Worldwide Technology Championship. You and I were speaking just before we hit the record button, and I don't believe either one of us mentioned Erik van Rooyen specifically on the pod last week, but he has been on our radar for the past month or two. We've talked a lot about him. Specifically, I have mentioned the fact that he's the type of player I like targeting, especially in fall events, because he's shown that he can be a world-class player when he's on his game. He's shown that he's coming back into form. The odds makers haven't quite caught up to that with their pricing of him. And so I did have a nice little piece of him outright last week, even though we didn't mention him on the pod. And I will, just a little preview here. My favorite outright play that I'll give you is the last hole of our 18 in just a little bit. Has a similar narrative to Erik van Rooyen. I'm just leaving that there. Just a former world-class player who's, I think, kind of getting back there at least a little bit.
All right, good to know. G'day, everyone. Good to be back again for another crack at this. And you're right. Look, I didn't have Erik van Rooyen on my card this week, but I think if you went back through all of our fall podcasts, you'll see that he's mentioned in every single other one, and we've given that same narrative, as you said, that, look, his odds are up there. He was great odds, I feel like, for top 40 throughout this fall. You're getting plus money the whole way. And if you did happen to get some action on him like you did, mate, then congratulations to you. Other than outside that, it was one of those weeks for me where I think 4 of my 9 hit, but they were all the sort of plus 110, plus 250, etc. A couple of the long shots getting into the top 40, etc. So hopefully that's a fair to middling. Didn't lose anything big if you went along with my picks. Let's hope we can get you in the positive this week, though.
All right, so as we get to this week's Butterfield Bermuda Championship, Adam Scott is the favorite on the board. He's never before played this event. I love the fact that Scotty is still out there chasing it in his 40s now, still not afraid to go out and play a fall event and try to get into those signature tournaments next year. After that, there's a little drop-off, Ben. I'm trying to be nice here. It is not the greatest field that we have seen throughout the entire year. I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm telling you right now, my picks are some hold-your-nose picks, man. They are going to be ugly. There's some names you probably haven't heard in a long time. There's some big numbers attached to them. All right, we're playing stinky picks this week at the Butterfield Bermuda Championship. I don't know if Chalky Benny's going to be around, but there ain't much chalk on the board. So I don't know how chalky you can go. I'm telling you, mine are far from chalky this week. So we got some big ticket plays. You ready to get into it?
I'm ready to get into it. That's actually cool because, relatively speaking, Chalky Benny's probably is back this week, which means that we're getting both ends of the board covered. Look, I'll just go back. We've been there 4 times, right? Butterfield, Bermuda here at, what is it, Port Royal, I believe? Yeah, yes. Port Royal. Yep. And look, we don't have shot lead stats. It's another one of those weeks where you're going based off what they sort of did that week with the basic stats. I went in deeper to look at all the 4 winners, how they were playing leading in or what they did that year. And look, the only one thing that really came up a lot for me, I'll just run you through it. The last winner was Seamus Power. He had 107 putts. Lucas Herbert, 107 putts. Brian Gay, 106 putts. Brendon Todd, 104 putts. You had to putt the dots off it. One or two of those years it got really windy. Lucas Herbert's winning was especially windy. So being able to play in the wind is something that you need to look at. You're looking at putters of the golf ball that can play in the wind. I mean, that's pretty much where you got to have a space at Bermuda and see what happens. So it sounds corny. It's a little basic, but I went to the strokes gained putting stats and that's where I started my research, and that's where the majority of my picks will come from. I'm just looking for guys who might make a zillion putts this week and hopefully jag a trophy. So without further ado, obviously one of the greatest putters ever to play, Adam Scott, you mentioned, is my first outright pick. The absolute favorite.
Right off the bat.
Chalky Benny off the bat, but let me tell you about Adam Scott too, though. This is what people don't realise unless you've been listening to us for the last 12, 24 months. But Adam Scott actually ranks 16th on the PGA Tour this season in strokes gained putting, which is third in this field in terms of his season-long putts. And he has played there before. He won the Grand Slam of golf there in 2013 after he won the Masters that year against, what that would have been against Justin Rose. I'm trying to think of the other two major winners that year. But anyway, he's had a little bit of support, a little bit of history there. So it's not going completely lost. Also, people say, oh, where's he been? He hasn't played. Can he just pick it up? Well, let me tell you that Adam Scott does that at this time of year every year. He goes and plays in things like the Australian Open. And that is what he is actually gearing up for this week. He's going so that when he gets to Australia, he's got a little bit more golf under his belt. I know that you mentioned the signature events, etc. He don't want to be left out of that. He's not going there for a holiday. He's going there, much like we thought Cam Young might be able to handle last week. Adam Scott is going there to try to get something, knock it off, and move into some form as he heads to the Australian summer. So I'm going to back him as my countryman. I'm going to bring him in. And Bet365 has him boosted, I believe. Let me see here. Yeah, 1,800 each way for the Bet365 boost. So that'll give you top 8 places, I think, with them as well. Adam Scott's to start.
Okay. I will say I am not going to the shortest player in the field this week, but look, no, in comparison with other weeks, getting a favorite at 18-1 is not necessarily a bad play. I mean, we've seen favorites throughout the entire year that are 7-1, 8-1, 10-1, 12-1 on a weekly basis. If you can get Adam Scott, if you say, look, he's the best player in the field, I like him, he's going to win, he's really into it. 18-1 is not a bad number, at least, for the favorite in this type of field. And again, there are guys dropping like flies. I mean, we mentioned it earlier, but Erik van Rooyen, who just won this past weekend, he dropped out on Monday. Mackenzie Hughes, who I know is on your list, Ben, he dropped out on Monday. And so it's shortening up. My advice, if you're listening to this earlier in the week, make your bets before we get to the end of the week. You never know. A couple of flight delays, and all of a sudden we can lose 3 of the top 5 on the board. I don't know. So if you like a guy, get in now. And I'll go to the second hole. And yes, we are on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as picking out players this week. You went with the favorite in Adam Scott. A few weeks ago, Ben, back at the Zozo Championship, I gave you my favorite long shot outright of Ryo Ishikawa, who was 350-1 and finished in the share of 4th place. Granted, didn't cash outright tickets, but if you had him for an each-way play, it cashed. Yeah. And so I'm looking for maybe not quite a number that big, but about half that number, 180-1 this week, on a guy I've been keeping my eye on, who's playing some sneaky, steady golf. We talk about great putters, and he certainly is not one of those, but you never know. The ball striking's there. He gets a little hot. Jason Dufner has at least won before. He's won a major championship. I like the guys who've kind of been there, done that. It fits that narrative, and I'm going to get into another player later on who really fits the narrative, but similar narrative to Erik van Rooyen, a guy who's kind of been there, climbed the hill, fallen back down, is trying to find some form to get there again, and the odds makers haven't quite caught up to where he's gotten to. And so at 180-1, look, I'm not going to sit here and say I think Jason Dufner is going to win this week, but I like his number a whole lot better than a bunch of guys who are 1/6 that number at, say, 30-1 and not looking quite as good as him recently and being in form. So I'll take a shot there just to start my card.
Yeah, and going back to just the preamble of this, this is definitely a week where you can do this. You can do exactly what you're essentially suggesting and put small units on a bunch of big numbers. I mean, Brian Gay won this tournament, so he might as well have been 1,000,000 to 1 when he got it done, and he might as well be 1,000,000 to 1 again. But yet he's probably a long shot, like top 10 play later as well. So this is one of those ones as the numbers are dwindling, and if we get wind, say just in the afternoon on just one of the first 2 days, you could wipe out half the field just like that. So there's going to be some luck involved there as well. So definitely look to sprinkle a few quote unquote lottery picks. I don't mind that. I'll get to long shots later, so I'll stick with the sort of top finishes. I'm going to give you. I'm going to stick with the Australian brethren. I'm going to go for my top 5 play. Another Aussie. I had him last week as one of those picks. I wanted him top 5. I think last week. I'm going to go with him top 5 again. Lucas Herbert, former champion of this event, didn't defend because we had bigger and better things to play in last year when this tournament was on. I think it's 4-1 or so for him to be in the top 5 again. Look, he is 30th strokes gained putting. Obviously knows how to putt the ball. The year that he won, 2021, he was first on tour in strokes gained putting at the end of that season. I think he's the 6th best in the field putting this year. And if it does get windy, he knows how to flight it. He knows how to keep it under the wind. That's what it showed. And he's a chip on the shoulder type of guy. I believe that, he's out there in this fall too to sort of get himself back and amongst it. He had some, he admittedly said he had some sort of mental scars at some point during this season. He took some time off after the Open, got himself right, and he's playing well this fall and building himself back. I think he'll get the vibes he wants in Bermuda and should be a contender.
All right. I like that. Again, I'm going for a much bigger number, 4th hole. My top 5 play. Boy, these are, I'm telling you, it starts ugly, it gets uglier, Benny. I'm just warning you.
Yeah.
But a guy who claimed a top 5 ticket last week, he's shown to be a momentum player over the course of his career. I tell you what, the Erik van Rooyen story was brilliant. I mean, the emotion, the passion that he showed after he won, but I believe we would have gotten similar vibes from Camilo Villegas, who has dealt with similar tragedy over the course of his life. Of course, lost his daughter about 1.5 years ago. And so Camilo played fantastic throughout the entire weekend, came up a couple of strokes short on Sunday, but finished in a share of second place. We've seen, like I said, over the years, when he starts playing good golf, it seems to come in bunches. I would not be surprised whatsoever to see Camilo put together another title contention. I'll take him for a top 5 at 20-1, Ben, which is a really big number for a top 5 play.
Yeah, you know what? I looked into him as much as anything out of the heart. I really wanted to see him win. And to be fair, and I usually I like to think I know what's going on with the international players. I wasn't across the Erik van Rooyen scenario. Otherwise, I would have been just, quite as happy at the time to see him pull through like he did on Sunday with that emotional tribute to his mate who, has the terminal illness. But both of those guys deserve, everything that's coming to them in terms of positiveness on the golf course. So I'd love to see Camilo do it again. Do I think he can? I'm not so sure, but I definitely think he can start hot. So those of you in the UK and in Australia listening, he might be a Betfair or whatever play where you want to get on him early and then jump off if you have to. I think Camilo can potentially ride the wave, like you said, and I hope he does. I hope he goes all the way. That'd be fun. All right, where's my next chalk? Oh, let's go to a top 20 play then. This is plus 230. It's like that's big money in my
it is, yeah.
Plus 230 for a top 20. Look, this guy again, 7th in the field in terms of strokes gained putting this season, 33rd overall, a T8 and a T17 at this tournament before Justin Lauer. Justin Lauer is one for me that I think that he can maintain. He's already done it twice. Get another top 20. I think he obviously likes the joint and can putt.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I did not list him, but I've already made a couple of DFS lineups, and I do have Lauer as a guy that I'm looking at. So I don't have a problem with that whatsoever, especially for a top 20. All right, we get to hole number 6. hold your nose, Benny. It's not often I'll give you a top 10 play on a guy who hasn't finished in the top 10 of any event since his first start of 2023 back in week 2 of the season at the Sony Open. That said, David Lipsky, first of all, is a guy that is very consistent. He's a guy that I like on shorter golf courses. This one is 6,800 plus yards, so you don't have to bang it out there. Going to be a lot of wedges into these greens. And that top 10 did come, like I said, at Waialae, which I think is a nice correlation to what we'll see at Port Royal this week. A shorter golf course, windy, tight, focus on ball striking and making some putts. Again, it ain't pretty, but a top 10 on David Lipsky at plus 700. I'm giving you, if nothing else, I'm giving you big numbers to shoot for. I'm giving you a bunch of lottery tickets this week, and I'll give you some more coming up. But David Lipsky at 7-1 just for a top 10 in, again, a depleted field this week. Why not take a shot?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be hard for me to disagree or agree with a lot of your stuff because I didn't go that deep on the board, obviously. So we'll see. I'd say good luck to you all out there. Because, again, I'll just fall back to what I said a little while ago. Find guys that you like, even guys you've heard of, whatever. Yes. Just take a little stab. Have some fun. Like, that's what this is for. It's for golf. Have a little bit of fun with it. Give you something to check the scores for on the weekend, right? Like, while you might be checking your fantasy football, check your golf bets as well, and you might get lucky.
Benny, this is a great week for if there's a guy that you've had your eye on over the last year or two, and you're like, I really like that young player. I think he's going to be pretty good someday. There's never really been the right time to bet him, or maybe you've played him in a few DFS lineups. And you're like, I don't know, he just seems a little overmatched right now, but I do like him and I like his game. If he's playing this week, shoot your shot because you're not going to get too many other chances in fields like this where your guys who have been off the radar are suddenly going to be on the radar at this one.
Yeah, for sure. All right, top 10 play for the 7th hole. A guy who I know can play in bad weather if he needs to, has a recent top 5 in the fall, has a top 15 at this venue before, 23rd strokes gained putting. That makes it 5th in the field putting this year. I'm going to go with a guy who is slowly bringing something back. You talked about veterans trying to show their best of late. I think we might seeing a mini resurgence for Alex Noren, and he is plus 260 to top 10 this week. I like Alex. As I said, I think it gets a little windy. If they get a little storm off the wind, off the ocean or something, he'll be able to handle it. So Alex Noren is a good play there for me at plus 260 for a top 10.
Regular listeners of this pod know what I'm going for here, but I will tell you about Alex Noren later in the podcast. Oh, spoiler alert. What does that mean? All right. Yes, I will get to Alex Noren. I happen to concur with you on the top 10, maybe a little bit better. We'll get to hole number 8 in the meantime. My top 20 play. Again, I'm giving you numbers. Might not be giving you names you like, but I might be giving you numbers that you like. Last year, Austin Smotherman finished in 23rd here. I'm taking him to finish just a few notches better inside the top 20 at plus 300, 3-1. He fits exactly what I was talking about a minute ago, Benny. The type of guy where I'm like, I like Austin Smotherman. I think he's a good ball striker. I think he's a good player. Hasn't had a ton of chances on the PGA Tour over the past year. I think he had conditional status, wasn't getting into a ton of events, but I just like his overall game. I think he's going to be good at some point if something clicks for him, but I'll try him this week because, again, in a depleted field for a top 20, he shouldn't be too far off the base.
Yeah, he's a player of some talent. So you're right. If he's been on your radar, this is the week to shoot your shot. Simple as that. And a lot of these guys will see that too, by the way. The guys that are there that are on the peripheral of contending, or they've been, doing a lot of top 40s or 55th and 60th, they're going this week knowing, okay, got to step it up here. This is my shot. This is my chance where it's not as deep, the field. And I have a chance to, play clever golf. It's not a just bomb and gouge place. You've got to be a little smart. It's not going to give the distance guys an advantage. You just got to make some putts. So I feel there'll be a lot of guys seeing it as their opportunity week. That's for sure. Yeah. All right, I'll give you some top 40. It's so funny. So normally, as I said, I try to go the plus money on the top 40s. I found two -110, so almost. These are my these are your bank builders, right? These are the ones I think where hopefully you can, you pay off those few lottery tickets you're going to take elsewhere. But look, two putters. One is actually the top putter in the field in terms of putting this year, Harry Hall. If he is fourth overall on tour and clearly the best putter this season as far as everyone else. So why not? He could finish top 40. I know he hasn't necessarily put up the results, but top 40 in this field shouldn't be so difficult for him if he is making putts. And the other bloke, he's an interesting character because he does pop up a few times a year, even when there's a bigger field, and finds himself near the top of the leaderboard and then goes missing from there. But we usually see him shoot a couple of shots around each season. 18th strokes gained putting, fourth in the field, and that is Peter Malnati. Peter Malnati's had a T7 and a T21 in Bermuda before, so I think you can get another top 40 for your bank builder there.
This is definitely Peter Malnati season, so I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And oh, by the way, if you thought you were going deeper for your top 40 plays, just give me a minute here. Just give me a minute. I've got to do another read here as we make the turn. Benny, I will leave you with a trivia question. I believe even a man of your little talent can figure this one out. What type of grass is on the greens in Bermuda? All right, I'll leave you with that. As we make the turn, one more reminder that the Links and Locks podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. It believes that every sport should be epic. Every tournament, every game, every point, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. See for yourself when you sign up today with code ACTION. And you'll get $365 in bonus bets when you bet just $1. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 or older only. Must be present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, and Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Benny, I don't know. That could be a trick question. What kind of greens do they have in Bermuda?
Oh, it's got to be crabgrass, right? No, just kidding. Obviously, it's that Bermuda. The Tiff Eagle Bermuda, I believe, isn't it?
It is.
Tiff Eagle Bermuda?
Yes, it is. I was hoping that you would get so crossed up with the easy question, thinking I was trying to double-cross you, that you got I think that you think that I think that you and I might catch you on it, but no, it's Bermuda. It is Bermuda, guys. All right, let's get to hole number 10. We start off the back nine. All right. You went with your top 40 plays. I've got one top 30, one top 40. You thought you were going deep on the board, Benny? Oh, I mean, seriously, like, hold your nose. Top 30 play on my guy, Satoshi Kodaira.
Oh, here he comes.
Plus 275.
Wow.
Plays his best golf on short, tight tracks.
Yep.
He was 12th just a few weeks ago at the Zozo Championship back in his native Japan. He's showing some form. And then I'll give you a little double here. 2 picks for the price of 1. Also in the 10 hole here. Paul Hanley II for a top 40 at plus 300. Paul Hanley has not had the best year.
Yeah.
As I wrote, I will read to you from my preview here. Benny, you know things are getting a bit dire when you start thinking to yourself that you're pretty intrigued by Paul Hanley II, who hasn't finished inside the top 40 of an event in 6 full months. I'll say this much, though. He's a good wedge player, so that should count for something this week. And hey, betting on the Butterfield is pure sicko stuff, as some of my Action Network colleagues would say. So we might as well go full sicko, try to hit some bigger numbers. Plus 300 on Paul Hanley II for a top 40. And I never understood why. What's the difference between going junior and going the second? I never knew that one.
I don't know. I couldn't answer. But look, I will say I'm laughing. But look, one of the 4 bets that hit for me last week was Brent Grant for a top 40 at plus 275, who'd done absolutely nothing all season. So he could be this week's Brent Grant for sure. Like last week, I went with him because it was a Bombers course, and that might be where I get some Harry Hall love, as I said, being a putting course this week. But you've done your research.
with the amount of withdrawals that we've seen, there might only be 40 guys in the field by the time we get to Thursday.
Yes. 100. Oh dear. All right. Let's keep this long shot theme going. And this is laughable now because my long shot pick for the week is not even triple digits after you've named all these guys. Oh dear. My long shots are 55 to 1 shot for this week. And I don't know if you know this, but there was a player last week who hit every single fairway the entire tournament, which hasn't been done since I want to say the early 90s on tour. Legitimately every fairway in an event. I think it was done at Muirfield, way back when, maybe 1991. I think might have been the stat that I saw or somewhere.
Yeah. Brian Clark, 92 maybe. Yeah,
something like that. But this gentleman hit every single fairway last week. He also is 41st on tour in strokes gained putting. Look, he's had top 35 results in his last three tournaments. And I think that there might be a little sneaky chance at 55 to 1 for Adam Long. As I said, he can putt, is playing into some form. 55 to 1 is reasonable, as you said, in this field. I mean, that's a good number for a guy that has a reasonable chance. So that's my long shot. And I'll give you, as I said, I did write this down. I forgot that I wrote this down. I said, if you want a long shot for your top 10, a bloke who hasn't done anything except in the 4 times this tournament's been on, finished 3rd, 1st, 12th, and 11th, Brian Gay is 11 to 1 for a top 10. He's gone pretty much close to doing it every single time. 12th is his worst finish. Clearly, he likes this joint. He must have a good holiday there every year. If it's 11 to 1 for 10, maybe you go to the top 20 and you're still getting big plus money on Brian Gay if you're looking for a long shot play on a guy that clearly loves the course.
I want to go back to your first long shot and another trivia question for you, Ben. I don't want to get you too tied up here. I hope you can figure this one out. Can you name the Twitter handle of your long shot play this week?
Oh, it's got to be long something.
It's at a long shot.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, let's hope he... I don't know. He just seems to be one of those guys, I said, that's rounding into some form. His stats somewhat marry up there. And in terms of value in this field, 55, 50 to 1 for a guy who I think has a legitimate shot. Might be where you can get a little sneaky one in there.
Yep. Okay. I like that. Speaking of sneaky, I'll get to the 12th hole here with my first round leader play. Full disclosure, I had Mackenzie Hughes, and he withdrew about 3 hours before we started recording this podcast. So instead, I have pivoted to a guy very much like Jason Dufner, who's quietly, sneakily starting to play some good golf, Kelly Kraft. And you go, wait, what? Kelly Kraft? I haven't even heard his name in forever. Kelly Kraft with 4 finishes of 33rd or better in his last 5 starts. In the first round, he has shot 70 or better in all 5 of those events. Has a scoring average on Thursdays in those 5 of 67.8. Kelly Kraft, 80 to 1 for a first round leader play. I don't know. Why not? You got something better? I mean, 80 to 1. It's a nice number. First round leader plays this time of year are impossible, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Throw the dart. But mate, 12th in this field, strokes gained putting, 44th on the season. He's on my list. He's the first name that fell off my bets today. So Kelly Kraft, I can see being someone to keep an eye on. I'm happy to back you on that one. I actually did have some research on that guy. So, yeah, again, you're throwing darts. You're doing your best. And I'm going to go to my...
Shocker of the year, by the way, is that you did not have fellow Australian Cam Percy for your first round leader bet last week. I mean, that is such a Ben Everall type of bet.
Yeah, he shoots his absolute career low 10 under on tour at 49. He's literally going to Champions Tour Q School in a month. Cam Percy. I was texting with him after he did it. I said, I said, look, if Rod Pamplin can do it, near the end of his PGA Tour career, why can't you? And he was pretty pumped. He just couldn't get the putts to fall the next 3 days. And he had a couple of wild mistakes that ended up rolling into bushes that sort of stopped him from continuing on. But I do love Cam Percy. He's a good bloke.
He is actually a guy, Benny, and I know we're getting off topic a little bit, but about earlier this year, there was one of the media officials who normally works with PGA Tour champions was out with the PGA Tour for a week. And I didn't know the guy. We hadn't really seen each other in a long time. And started catching up, and we started talking PGA Tour champions. And, we don't talk PGA Tour champions, senior circuit, very often. I was just thinking, there's a guy that turns 50 soon who's going to, I was just thinking about him, and I'm like, he is going to tear it up. And I couldn't remember who it was. And, I texted him, the next Monday, and I'm like, I figured it out. It was Cam Percy. And so now we see him. He's playing well on the PGA Tour, putting up scores. As long as he gets his card out there and he's getting into some events, he can do some damage.
Yeah, and look, I actually should have known to think of him last week, to be fair. He's a Paspalum, which was last week's grass. He's actually proven on Paspalum. He's done very well every time the tour has gone to that type of grass. Is it Puerto Rico, I think, and one of the other tournaments that he's been in the top 10 numerous times. So it's someone that should have had on my radar as an Aussie. But anyway, I digress. Where were we going? Oh, we're first round leader. Okay, I'm going to go to my tried and true thing that absolutely bit me on the bum last week. I think I was texting you about how I had gone with Cam Young and the other favourites as a chance for first round leader, and then they played really well, but not quite well enough. And in the end, that you couldn't get the odds, the better odds after the first round that you were hoping to get. But I am going to go back to the well on that theory because I think one guy who I want to see him, I want to see the first round and to see really if he can marry up just okay form at the moment to what is clearly good course form, and that's Thomas Detry. Thomas Detry is a name that I think you can't sleep on. He's been second and 22nd here before, but not necessarily playing great. He's inside the top 50 on tour strokes gained putting, so he's up there with that. He clearly likes it, but I just think, you get better odds to go for the first round lead, see if he gets off to a hot start, and then decide whether you want to jump on the outright from that point on.
I had a feeling that's where you're going. He is actually written down as my very next play for the 14th hole. I've got Detry in the finishing position market at Bet365 for 23rd or better. He's been 22nd and 2nd in his 2 starts in Bermuda so far. He, a couple of years ago, had J.P. Fitzgerald on the bag, and he obviously had caddied back in the day at Port Royal, and he felt like that was a nice little advantage to have walking around the golf course with him. And so he's played some good golf course, seems to like this place. The floor is higher than, well, I guess that doesn't make much sense. That's one of those cliches. The floor is higher than the ceiling. He has a high floor and maybe not quite as high of a ceiling in comparison. How's that for trying to break it down? But I do think that 23rd or better is a really nice placement market bet for Detry this week.
Yeah, not bad. All right, I'll give you my placement market. I know we like to do that. So I'm going to go back to a guy, and this is probably the only guy on my radar this week that's not known for his putting. But I'm going to go with him because he cashed for me last week, and that's Taylor Pendrith, 26th or better, the minus 120. Again, this is based on what he's done at this course before. He was killing it the year that Lucas Herbert won until that final round and got lapped when Herbert decided to play brilliantly in the really tough winds. I think so. He was 5th that year, I think, from memory. And look, he's been 15th and 3rd in recent weeks on tour as well in the fall. So Taylor Pendrith, I think, above 26th place is a decent bank builder in that place market.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. He's a guy that we talk about floors and ceilings. He's a guy that the floor is a little low. The ceiling, though, is high. I mean, if he wins this week, I don't think anybody would be surprised because he has that type of talent. And I've thought that he was going to break out for a long time now. So I like that play a lot. Getting to the 16th hole, let me give you a matchup play. Head-to-head, Doug Ghim. Playing some nice golf. 8 of his last 13 inside the top 30. Another floor guy. Another guy that just kind of week to week kind of plods his way around. He's not contending for a whole lot of titles, but he very infrequently plays bad golf. I'm going to take him over Ryan Palmer. I know Ryan Palmer's a really good wind player, and it should be blowing there at Port Royal this week, but I don't feel like Ryan Palmer's necessarily stepping on the gas pedal at this point in his career at a fall event. I know that, look, a big week can mean a lot moving forward to next year, and that's why he's playing, but it's also sort of he's been around for 20 years now. This is not going to be like hey, let's go out there and grind real hard this week for Ryan Palmer. So I just think it means more to Doug Ghim. He's playing better golf, and I'll take Doug Ghim at minus 110 in a head-to-head bet this week.
It's funny, I circled here, Sobel's likely picks Doug Ghim. somewhere. So I knew he's one of the guys you like, but that's the only one that I expected to come from you that you've put out there, since your bets have been way over the top.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
because
fun.
you didn't know most of the names that I've listed out here.
Something like that. All right, Chalky Benny's back. We're going to the outright market. I've said it's a putting week. I think you can get plus 2,000 each way at Bet365 on a boost. 14 strokes game putting, second in the field. Former champion Brendon Todd. Look, he was sixth last week. He's playing into some form. I'm going to give Brendon Todd some love here. He's a former fall champion. He loves this time of year. He loves to putt, and he loves going to these joints across the ocean and playing. So, again, you might have a better option out there that you think someone might come from the clouds, and they may well do. But I think Todd's one of those ones that if you ignore, he might bite you on the bum. So even if it's just a little nibble at him to sort of cover you, I think you've got to keep an eye on Brendon Todd this week when putting is the key.
I don't mind him at all. I think he'll probably have a pretty good week. He could have a great week. Were you surprised, Benny, that he was number 2 on the odds board coming into this one?
Yes.
Same.
Answer.
If I'm handicapping this field, I probably have some combination of Adam Scott, Lucas Glover, Akshay Bhatia, and Thomas Detry as my top 4, and Brendon Todd probably rounds out the top 5 after those guys.
Yeah, and full disclosure, look, guys, and you sort of touched on this earlier. He was, until 3 hours ago, my first hole pick, if you will. He was my second outright play. I was all in on Mackenzie Hughes, who was closer to 40 to 1 and a much better value. Mackenzie Hughes also playing into some form and, a decent putter. So, look, he's sort of in my top slot by default, but I still think he's a guy you've got to look at. And you're right. Look, again, I'm giving you the conservative options, which, maybe if you're thinking conservative for the Butterfield Bermuda champion, in all honesty, well, maybe you don't need to even be doing it this week. You know what I mean? Like, maybe if I want to be fair income and honest with you guys out there, it's an opportunity week. You can play the conservative if you maybe you're looking, as I said, I'll just put a little bit out and try to build my bank for next week or for the next time I go out. Or you can see this as, let's have some fun and sprinkle some lottery picks out. And if that's the case, if that's your thought process, then maybe steer over to Jason's picks here. And if you're thinking about being more conservative, look with my picks. I think that gives you 2 ways to go, and that should be your thought process this week.
Yeah, you make a great point, because there are different types of bettors. Some want a lottery ticket, some want a little more ROI and less risk. And I think that, certainly we've given them 2 different options this week. All right, we get to the final hole. And as mentioned earlier, I told you there was a little spoiler alert. I'm going to go with the guy that you listed for a top 10. Alex Noren makes a ton of sense to me this week. First of all, I like his price at 25 to 1. I think that in a field that everyone feels way too short, I think that he does not feel way too short, and that's a good sign for me. Secondly, there's some form. He's been 15th or better in 3 of his last 8 starts, so he's playing some good golf right now. There is, secondly, just a little bit of history. You mentioned it. T15 in his only previous start, which was 4 years ago at this event, but he played every round sub 70. And so, it was the easiest of the 4 previous Bermuda championships, but he did at least play well, put up some scores. And the last part of this, the narrative that I was speaking of earlier, Alex Noren is a guy who's played in the Ryder Cup. He's been a top 10 player in the world ranking. This is a guy who's sort of been there, done that. He's won 10 times on the DP World Tour. He's gotten into playoffs on the PGA Tour. He's never gotten through and gotten that PGA Tour victory. But again, another player who wouldn't surprise us whatsoever if he is able to go out and finally win a PGA Tour title. And so he is my favorite play on the board this week, Benny.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to argue, as I said, because he's on my board and was from the start. And I think I mentioned earlier, like, this season of the guys in the field, he's 5th best in putting. It's not like he can't roll the rock in a place where he's going to need to. And if the weather does get a little dicey, whether it's calm or not, he can play in all conditions. So, yeah, I do like those odds a little better. You're almost talking me into him at that 25. And you mentioned what I thought Brendon Todd would. I would have thought Todd would have started around there myself, 25, 28, 30. So, that would have been a number I would have liked to see more for a few of the guys. But yeah, that's value for sure in this field. Let's hope he has a good week.
Yeah, interesting on Noren because when he was playing his best golf, he was a world-class ball striker. He's still got that in him, but you look at his stats over the past year, and he's been doing it with short game and putting. And so that part of his game has been really, really good. The ball striking comes back to him a little bit. Keep it in the fairway. That's sort of it this week. Keep it in the fairway. The ball striking's good. You get up and down. You make some putts. He makes, once again, a ton of sense to me this week. That's all we got, everybody. Appreciate you listening to this edition of the Links and Locks Best Bet podcast presented by Bet365. Remember, you can find us each and every week during the PGA Tour season, wherever you find your favorite podcast. Download, subscribe, rate, and listen. For Ben Everill, I'm Jason Sobel. Good luck with all your bets for this week's Butterfield Bermuda Championship. Here's hoping you hit the green.